Commander Lisa Allen stood at the viewport of the evacuation vessel, earthbound, her fingers pressed against the cold glass. Below, the human colony on Proxima Centauri B burned. Concordat ships circled like vultures, making sure nothing of human value remained. 20 years of work, thousands of lives built here, all being erased in a day. "Commander, we need to leave now. Their patrol ships are changing formation," said Lieutenant Paul Davis from behind her. Lisa nodded, but didn't turn away from the view. "How many people are still down there?" "None. Last transport cleared the atmosphere 10 minutes ago. We're the final ship." She finally turned, her face expressionless, but her eyes burning with an anger she wouldn't show the crew. "Then take us home, Lieutenant." The Earthbound's engines hummed as it pulled away from orbit. On the main screen, a message flashed. A direct communication from the Concordat Enforcement Fleet. Lisa read it silently. "Human presence in this system is now terminated. Return to Sol. Any vessel detected beyond the quarantine barrier after 48 hours will be destroyed." 6 months earlier, the vote had come without warning. The Galactic Concordat, a council of 27 alien species, had unanimously declared humans an unpredictable and destabilizing influence on interstellar affairs. The punishment: complete exile from all systems beyond Sol. Humans were given half a year to abandon 15 colonies, 32 research stations, and 7 mining operations. President William Carter had protested. Earth's ambassadors had begged. None of it mattered. The decision was final. Lisa made her way to the ship's crowded mess hall. Nearly 800 colonists filled every space, sitting on floors, leaning against walls. Families huddled together, with whatever possessions they'd been allowed to take, which wasn't much. The Concordat had strict limits on what could leave the colony. "Commander on deck," someone called, but Lisa waved away the formality. "Please sit, save your strength." She spotted a young boy clutching a small plant in a cup. "What have you got there?" she asked, kneeling next to him. "A piece of home," the boy said. "Dad says we might never see another world again." Lisa glanced at the boy's father, who looked away, embarrassed. "Your dad's wrong," she told the boy firmly. "This isn't forever. Remember that." Later, in her quarters, Lisa reviewed the data from the colony's final download. As evacuation commander, she had been given access to everything: research files, development plans, mineral surveys. The Concordat might have taken the planet, but they couldn't take the knowledge. A knock at her door interrupted her work. Dr. Peter Evans entered, looking as though he hadn't slept in days. As the colony's lead scientist, he'd fought hardest against the evacuation. "I've been studying their quarantine technology," he said without greeting. "The barrier they're building around Sol, it's fascinating." "Fascinating isn't the word I'd use for our prison walls," Lisa replied. "No, you don't understand." Peter's eyes were wide with excitement. "They made a mistake. Their understanding of spatial mechanics is flawed. I found something they missed." Lisa's attention sharpened. "Explain." "The barrier works by creating a phase shift in real space. Any object trying to cross it gets pushed back by a repulsion field. But there's a fundamental error in their calculations. They're treating space as having 11 dimensions, but my research proves there are 12. And this helps us how?" Peter smiled for the first time in months. "Because it means their barrier has a blind spot, a way through that they can't detect because they don't know it exists." Lisa stood up slowly. "Are you saying we could break the quarantine?" "Not immediately. I need time, resources. But yes, eventually. Their barrier is like a wall with an invisible door. We just need to find the handle." The Earthbound joined a sad procession of ships heading back to Sol. Through the viewports, Lisa saw hundreds of vessels, from massive colony transports to small private ships, all carrying displaced humans home. Millions of lives disrupted, dreams ended. Earth and its moon, already struggling with overpopulation, now faced an impossible burden. Lisa called a secret meeting in her quarters. Only 5 people attended: Peter Evans, Security Chief Samantha Miller, Engineer Daniel Wright, Communications Officer Ryan Cooper, and Medical Director Laura Wilson. "What I'm about to suggest borders on treason," Lisa began. "If anyone wants to leave now, there will be no judgment." No one moved. "Good. Dr. Evans has discovered a potential flaw in the Concordate's quarantine technology. But exploiting it will take years of secret research. Research the Concordate would immediately shut down if discovered." Samantha Miller, who had spent years building intelligence networks among alien species, spoke up. "I've reviewed the Concordate's private communications. They didn't exile us because we're unpredictable. They exiled us because we scared them." "Scared them?" "We're centuries behind their technology," Daniel Wright objected. "Not technologically," Samantha clarified. "Adaptively. Their internal reports call humans dangerously flexible, both mentally and as a species. We evolve faster, adapt quicker, solve problems differently. In 50 years, we accomplished what took most of them centuries." Laura Wilson nodded slowly. "So they cut us off, before we could catch up." "Exactly," Lisa said. "And they'll be watching us carefully to make sure we don't. So we give them what they expect to see," Ryan suggested. "A defeated humanity, turning inward, regressing." "While secretly preparing," Lisa confirmed. "Dr. Evans will lead research into breaking the barrier. Daniel, I want you focused on developing technologies the Concordate can't detect. Samantha, keep your intelligence channels open. We need to know our enemy. Laura, Ryan, you'll help maintain the cover story." The Earthbound reached Earth 2 weeks later. From orbit, Lisa watched the planet she'd left 5 years ago, now more crowded and desperate than ever. The lunar colonies had expanded rapidly to accommodate refugees, and Mars was being terraformed faster than safety protocols allowed. President Carter's address played throughout the ship. "Today marks our darkest hour. Yet remember this, they fear us not for our weapons, but for our potential." Lisa turned to her 5 conspirators. "The president's right, though he doesn't know how right. The Concordate made one crucial mistake." "What's that?" Laura asked. "They left us alive," Lisa said simply. "And they left us together. They should have scattered us, divided us among their worlds where we couldn't organize. Instead, they concentrated humanity in one system with a single purpose: survival." She looked back at Earth, her expression hardening. "They've created exactly what they feared most: a unified human race with nothing to lose and everything to prove. They think they've contained us? They've just compressed a spring." Daniel Wright smiled grimly. "And when a compressed spring is finally released, it strikes harder than anything," Lisa finished. "We start today. The Concordate thinks they've ended our story. They don't realize they've just written our beginning." 50 years passed since the exile. From space, Earth looked peaceful and stagnant. Concordate monitoring stations positioned at the edge of the quarantine barrier reported little activity beyond the expected. Some expansion on Mars, increased mining in the asteroid belt, and larger lunar settlements. Nothing alarming, nothing that suggested humanity was doing anything but accepting its fate. The aliens were wrong. Deep beneath the Atlantic Ocean floor, in a facility stretching nearly 100 miles, Daniel Wright stood before a machine that shouldn't exist. The quantum processor array hummed quietly, operating in dimensions the Concordate couldn't detect. "Status report," he said to the room full of engineers. "Dimensional stability at 98%, reported Susan Hayes, his chief assistant. We're maintaining full spectrum invisibility from outside observers." Daniel nodded, running a hand through his gray hair. He was no longer the young engineer from the Earthbound. Now 68, he had dedicated his life to the Prometheus project. "Begin the next phase," he ordered. "Let's see if we can push it to 99%. Elsewhere in the solar system, humanity worked with silent purpose. On the dark side of the moon, vast manufacturing centers had been built into the lunar regolith, completely hidden from Earth and any watching eyes. Inside one of these facilities, Admiral Kate Hudson inspected a line of newly constructed ships. "Beautiful, aren't they?" said her guide, a young naval officer named Aaron Green. Kate ran her hand along the sleek hull of the nearest vessel. Unlike the bulky ships of 50 years ago, these were elegant, almost predatory in design. How many can we produce per month? 25 at current capacity, but we're expanding constantly. Kate had been just a junior officer during the exile. Now, she commanded Earth's hidden fleet, over 800 vessels, none of which officially existed. And the perception-shifted drives, she asked, installed and tested. Eric Martinez personally oversaw the calibration. These ships are completely invisible to concordant detection systems. Kate smiled. We build in silence, she said. We build in silence, Aaron echoed the unofficial motto. On Mars, the surface showed only struggling colonies and basic terraforming efforts, exactly what the Concordant expected to see. But beneath the red soil, the planet had been hollowed out. Vast caverns housed research centers, training facilities, and stockpiles of resources. Hannah Rogers walked through a classroom of 20 children, all around 10 years old. As head of the Cultural Resilience Program, she was responsible for reshaping human society. Who can tell me why we study the stars? She asked. A girl named Lily raised her hand. Because they're our birthright. They were stolen from us, and one day we'll take them back. Hannah nodded. And why will we succeed? This time, a boy named Alan answered. Because we adapt. Because we change. Because what makes us human is that we never accept limits. Excellent, Hannah said. Remember, everything we do, every lesson, every test, every challenge, prepares us for the day we return to the stars. The Concordant thinks they've contained us. They're wrong. Every child in the solar system grew up with this philosophy. While appearing to accept exile on the surface, beneath it all, humanity was transforming itself. Back on Earth, in a council chamber deep under the ruins of old New York, the Human Reclamation Council met. Composed of 50 leaders from science, military, culture, and government, they were the true power behind humanity's rebirth. Dr. Peter Evans, now in his 80s but still sharp-minded, addressed the council. After 50 years of work, we've finally done it. We can breach the quarantine barrier. A murmur went through the room. Our understanding of the 12th dimension is now complete, Peter continued. The Concordance barrier is indeed flawed, just as I suspected decades ago. We've built a prototype ship that can pass through undetected. Have you tested it? Asked President Sarah Wilson. Yes, Madam President. 3 days ago, we sent an unmanned probe through the barrier and back. The Concordant showed no reaction. They didn't see it at all. Admiral Hudson spoke next. My fleet is ready. We've been training for this moment for decades. And what exactly is your plan, Admiral? Asked a council member. Not direct confrontation, Kate clarified. We're not ready for open war. Instead, we'll establish shadow colonies, hidden outposts in systems the Concordant rarely monitors. Gas giant moons, dense asteroid fields, regions they consider uninhabitable. Daniel Wright added, We've developed technologies that allow us to mask our presence completely. We can build entire settlements that will be invisible to their sensors. Hannah Rogers stood. And our people are ready. The first generation raised entirely under the Cultural Resilience Program is now in their 30s. They're the most adaptable, innovative humans who have ever lived. We've also been gathering intelligence, said Samantha Miller, now the elderly head of Earth's spy network. The Concordant isn't as strong as they once were. Old rivalries between member species are resurfacing. They're arguing over resources, territory, influence. The alliance is fragmenting slowly. President Wilson considered all this information. So we sneak past their barrier, establish hidden colonies, and then what? Wait another 50 years? Peter, Evans smiled. No, Madam President, we accelerate their collapse. Once we have footholds outside the Sol system, we can begin to create problems for them. What kind of problems? Technical failures, missing resources, miscommunications between species. Nothing that points to humans, but everything that increases tensions within their alliance. The president nodded slowly. "And who will lead this first mission beyond the barrier?" "I will," said a voice from the back of the room. Captain John Campbell stepped forward. At 35, he represented the new generation, born after the exile, raised to reclaim the stars. "My crew and I have been training on the stealth vessel Nightshade for 3 years. We're ready." 1 month later, the Nightshade slipped silently through the quarantine barrier. The Concordate's monitoring stations registered nothing. On board, John Campbell watched the barrier shimmer slightly as they passed through what Dr. Evans had called the dimensional blind spot. "Status report," John ordered, his voice steady despite the historic moment. "All systems normal, Captain," replied his pilot, Carol Ward. "Perception shifted drives functioning at optimal levels. We are completely invisible to their sensors." John allowed himself a small smile. "Set course for the Sirius system. We'll establish our first outpost there." As the Nightshade accelerated away from Sol, John thought about what they were beginning. In the 50 years since the exile, humanity hadn't just survived, it had transformed. While appearing defeated on the surface, underneath they had forged something new, something powerful. "The Concordate made a mistake," he said quietly to himself. "They should have killed us when they had the chance." Behind the Nightshade, 12 more stealth ships were being prepared. Within a year, they would all depart Sol, carrying the seeds of humanity's shadow network, the beginning of their unstoppable return to the stars. The silent decades were over. The shadow network was about to begin. 20 years had passed since the Nightshade first breached the quarantine barrier. What began as a single shadow colony in the Sirius system had grown into a vast hidden network. Humans now lived secretly on 43 worlds beyond Sol, all invisible to the Concordate's watchful eyes. Captain John Campbell, now Admiral Campbell, stood on the observation deck of New Horizon, the largest human settlement outside Sol. Hidden within a dense asteroid field in the Epsilon Eridani system, the colony housed over 20,000 people. From the outside, it appeared to be nothing but lifeless rock. Inside, it was a thriving community. "The latest report from intelligence," said his aide, handing him a datapad. John reviewed the information and smiled. "So the Arkelians and Zentari are fighting over mining rights in the Bellatrix system?" "Yes, sir. And neither side knows that the reason their mining equipment keeps failing is because of our people." "Excellent. Any word from Frank Morris?" "He's still undercover on the Concordate outpost in Alpha Centauri. His last transmission indicates that the Concordate High Council is calling an emergency session. Their alliance is showing serious cracks." John nodded with satisfaction. For 2 decades, humans had been working from the shadows, strategically weakening the Concordate from within. They caused technical failures, rerouted shipments, and planted false information, all designed to increase tensions between the member species. On the other side of New Horizon, Dr. Laura Wilson worked in her laboratory. At 56, she had become the leading geneticist in human space. Her current project was her most ambitious yet: environmental adaptives that would allow humans to survive in environments the Concordate considered lethal. "How are the test results?" she asked her assistant, Ben Davis. "Better than expected," Ben replied. "The subjects can now tolerate atmospheric pressure 5 times higher than normal human tolerance, and the radiation resistance is holding stable into the 3rd generation." Laura smiled. "Perfect. With these adaptations, we can establish colonies on worlds the Concordate would never think to look. They believe these environments will kill us, which gives us the perfect hiding places," Ben concluded. On Earth, few knew about the Shadow Network, beyond Sol. To maintain secrecy, the Human Reclamation Council had kept the knowledge limited to those directly involved. On the surface, humanity still appeared to be confined to the Sol system, struggling but compliant. The Concordate monitoring stations reported nothing unusual. Their sensors showed normal activity within Sol: mining operations, some terraforming. On Mars, civilian traffic between Earth and its colonies. Nothing that suggested humanity had broken the quarantine. Commander Ryan Phillips entered the secret council chamber beneath New York. Now 50, He had spent the last 15 years coordinating operations between Earth and the shadow colonies. His plan was about to change everything. "The time has come," he told the assembled council members. "For decades, we've studied their weaknesses. We've infiltrated their systems. We've turned them against each other. The Concordat isn't a unified entity anymore. It's a fragile coalition barely held together." "What exactly are you proposing?" asked President Alan Wright, son of Daniel Wright, who had passed away 5 years earlier. Ryan activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. 43 points of light illuminated representing human shadow colonies. Operation Lazarus, a coordinated reveal of our presence, designed to shatter what remains of the Concordat's unity. Admiral Kate Hudson, now in her 70s but still commanding Earth's hidden fleet, studied the display. "You want to bring all our colonies out of hiding at once? That's a massive risk." "A calculated one," Ryan countered. "Our intelligence indicates the Concordat species are now more afraid of each other than they are of us. Many are looking for alternatives to the current power structure." "And we offer that alternative," said Samantha Miller, her voice frail with age but her mind still sharp. "Exactly. We don't just reveal ourselves. We position humanity as the new power broker in the galaxy. We offer protection, technology, and stability to those who ally with us." The council debated through the night. By morning, they had reached a decision. Operation Lazarus would begin in 6 months, exactly 121 years after humanity's exile. In the Sirius Shadow Colony, the first established beyond Sol, the stealth vessel Pathfinder prepared for a special mission. Its captain, Nicole Bradford, received her orders directly from Admiral Campbell. "You'll lead the first strike against the Concordat homeworld centrics," he told her. "Not to destroy, to demonstrate. They need to see that we could have attacked at any time over the past 20 years but chose not to." Nicole nodded. "The weapons are ready. They won't detect us until impact. Remember, minimal casualties. We want to shock them, not start a war we can't win." Across human space, preparations accelerated. Shadow colonies shed their camouflage technologies, revealing the true extent of human settlements. Hidden factories produced chips at maximum capacity. Sleeper agents within Concordat systems prepared to activate dormant technologies installed over decades. On New Horizon, Frank Morris returned from his long undercover mission on the Concordat outpost. He brought critical information. "The Concordat knows something is wrong," he reported to Admiral Campbell. "They've noticed the increased tensions between member species, the technical failures, the resource shortages. They suspect sabotage but have no idea it's us. They're looking for enemies among themselves." "Perfect," John replied. "And the quarantine barrier around Sol?" "They check it regularly. As far as they know, it's still fully functional and humans are still contained." "What about their military readiness?" Frank smiled. "Scattered, divided. Each species is more concerned with protecting their own interests than maintaining the Concordat fleet. They've reduced joint patrols by 60% in the last 5 years." John turned to the galaxy map. Human influence, now stretched across 4 sectors of space, all hidden from Concordat knowledge. Soon that would change. "We've lived in the shadows long enough," he said quietly. "It's time for the galaxy to remember why they feared us." As the day of Operation Lazarus approached, a final piece fell into place. Stephen West, once a junior diplomat before the exile, and now the chosen ambassador of humanity, rehearsed his address to the Concordat Council. "We don't come seeking revenge," he practiced. "We come offering a new beginning. The galaxy is vast enough for all, but never again will we accept limitations on our potential." The countdown to humanity's return began. In Sol, the first visible sign would be the failure of the quarantine barrier, a shock to the Concordat who believed humans were still safely contained. They would send ships to investigate, finding an apparently abandoned Earth, and then, across the galaxy, humanity would emerge from the shadows all at once, not as refugees or exiles, but as a power that had used its banishment to forge something the Concordat never anticipated, an unstoppable empire built in silence and darkness, ready to step into the light. The day of Operation Lazarus arrived. Exactly 121 years after humanity's exile, the quarantine barrier around Sol mysteriously failed. Alarms sounded across concordant monitoring stations. Emergency signals flashed between alien worlds. Something impossible had happened. The Concordat High Council convened immediately. Supreme Leader Zalax of the Zentari spoke first, his voice rattling through translation devices. How is this possible? The barrier technology was flawless. Evidently not, replied Counselor Tarim of the Arkelians. We must send investigation ships immediately. 6 hours later, a fleet of Concordat vessels approached the Sol system cautiously. They expected to find humans attempting to escape their confinement. Instead, they found something far more disturbing. Silence. Earth appeared abandoned. Cities stood empty. Ports showed no activity. Sensors detected minimal life signs scattered across the planet. The lunar colonies seemed deserted. Mars outposts registered as non-operational. Scan again, ordered Fleet Commander Vazik. Where are they? 12 billion humans don't just disappear. His science officer rechecked the readings. Confirmed, Commander. Earth shows only approximately 10 million human life signs. The population has vanished. As the Concordat ship spread throughout the system to investigate, Admiral Kate Hudson watched from her flagship, Retribution, hidden in Saturn's rings. The moment had come. She opened a secure channel to all hidden human forces across the galaxy. Operation Lazarus is go, she said simply. Across the galaxy, thousands of previously invisible human outposts simultaneously revealed themselves. Hidden fleets emerged from dimensional pockets. Shadow colonies activated their defense systems. Sleeper technologies planted in Concordat systems for decades suddenly came online. On the Concordat homeworld Centrix, Captain Nicole Bradford led the first strike. Her ships appeared from nowhere, using perception-shifted weapons that the aliens couldn't detect until impact. With surgical precision, they disabled the planetary defense grid without causing a single casualty. Nicole opened a channel to the stunned Centrix command center. The funny thing about being underestimated, she told them, is how thoroughly you can prepare while no one's watching. We could destroy your world right now. Remember that in the coming negotiations. Her ships vanished again, leaving Centrix defenseless and its leaders in panic. In the Sirius system, Admiral John Campbell directed operations from New Horizon. Reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Some Concordat species immediately surrendered. Others tried to fight but found their weapon systems mysteriously non-functional. Several broke away from the Concordat entirely, declaring themselves independent and requesting human protection. Send the signal for Phase 2, John ordered. Moments later, the long-dormant human algorithms hidden in Concordat communication networks activated. Every screen across Concordat space displayed the same message. Humanity has returned. The Concordat has failed you. A new era begins today. On the Concordat Council Station, Unity, alarms blared as sensors detected an unidentified ship approaching. Despite activating all defense systems, the ship landed unopposed in the main docking bay. Out stepped Ambassador Stephen West, flanked by 8 human guards in sleek armor. I request an immediate audience with the full Concordat Council, he announced calmly. The aliens had no choice but to comply. Within minutes, Stephen stood before the 27 representatives of the Concordat species. Many appeared physically agitated, some trembling, others displaying signs of their species' stress responses. How is this possible? Demanded Supreme Leader Zalax. You were contained. The barrier was flawed, Stephen interrupted, as was your understanding of spatial mechanics, as was your assessment of human potential. You made many mistakes, but your greatest was thinking we would accept your judgment. Where is your population? Asked Counselor Tarim. Earth is nearly empty. Stephen smiled. We've been leaving Sol for 20 years. We established colonies throughout your territory, worlds you thought uninhabitable, regions you never monitored. While you watched our prison, we built an empire right under your sensors. The council chamber erupted in alarmed voices. Stephen waited for quiet before continuing. Humanity doesn't seek revenge. We seek recognition. The galaxy is vast enough for all, but never again will we accept limitations on our potential. He activated a holographic display showing the 43 human shadow colonies now revealed. These are our current settlements, but our influence extends much further. The display expanded to show hundreds of points where human technology had been secretly installed throughout concordate space. As we speak, 7 of your member species have already declared independence from the concordate. 3 more have requested human protection. Your alliance is over. Back in Sol, the concordate investigation fleet found themselves suddenly surrounded by human ships appearing from dimensional shifts. Admiral Hudson's voice came through on all frequencies. Your choices are simple: surrender, retreat, or be disabled. We have no desire to cause casualties, but we will not hesitate if fired upon. In the confusion, several concordate ships opened fire. Their weapons passed harmlessly through the human vessels, which appeared to shimmer slightly before solidifying. Again. Perception shifted shields, Admiral Hudson explained. We exist partially in the 12th dimension, a dimension your weapons can't touch. Please don't waste your energy. One by one, the concordate ships powered down their weapons. Some requested permission to retreat. Others surrendered outright. On Earth, in the old council chamber beneath New York, President Alan Wright addressed the remaining human population. Today, the exile ends, not because the concordate granted us permission, but because we decided it was time. For over a century, we've prepared for this moment. The president's speech was broadcast to all human settlements across the galaxy. We didn't just survive exile, we used it. While they watched our prison, we built something they never imagined possible. We turned their punishment into our opportunity. In the Epsilon Eridani system, Dr. Laura Wilson watched the celebrations on New Horizon with quiet pride. Her environmental adaptives had allowed humans to colonize worlds the concordate deemed impossible for life. Those adaptations had given humanity hiding places where no one thought to look. We should thank them, in a way, she told her colleague, Ben Davis. Without the exile, we might have developed more slowly, more conventionally. Being pushed to the edge forced us to think beyond established limits. Across the galaxy, the concordate's control collapsed with stunning speed. The alliance had been weakened by decades of human-engineered discord, and now it shattered completely. Some species sought new alliances, others turned to old rivalries, and through it all, humanity emerged as the galaxy's new power broker, offering stability, technology, and protection. As Ambassador West left the council station, he received a message from Admiral Campbell. Phase 3 is complete. The concordate has officially dissolved. The galaxy waits for what comes next. Stephen smiled. The unveiling had succeeded beyond their expectations. Now came the hard part, building something better than what had come before. The human dominion was about to begin. 25 years had passed since Operation Lazarus. The former concordate species now existed as protectorates within a human-dominated galactic structure. The human dominion controlled key strategic resources, transit routes, and technological development across the known galaxy. Administrator Olivia Harris stood at the center of the newly constructed Galactic Assembly on the massive space station Reconciliation. Representatives from 84 species filled the chamber, including the 27 former concordate members and 57 newly contacted civilizations. Welcome, Olivia began, her voice carrying across the vast hall. Today marks the 25th anniversary of the new galactic order. Our empire wasn't built on conquest, but on patience. Not on destruction, but on understanding. We didn't just outlast our enemies. We comprehended them better than they comprehended themselves. The alien representatives listened quietly. Some still harbored resentment toward humans, but none could deny the prosperity that had spread under human leadership. Trade flourished between worlds that had previously been enemies. Technology advanced at rates never before seen. The quality of life improved across species. Later that day, Olivia met with her advisory council in a private chamber. The council included humans from various fields: science, military, diplomacy, and culture. The Arkelians are still pushing for more autonomy, reported Samuel Wilson, chief diplomat to the former concordate species. Give it to them, Olivia said simply. Our advantage isn't control, it's innovation. Let them govern themselves as long as they respect the core principles of the Dominion. General Andrew Morgan nodded in agreement. Now 62, he had once been a young recruit in the Shadow Forces. After Operation Lazarus, he had risen to oversee the Dominion Security Council. The strength of our position isn't our weapons, he explained to the newer council members. It's our creativity. We imagine possibilities where others see only limitations. The Dominion operated on principles of managed autonomy. Former concordate worlds maintained cultural independence but operated under human oversight. Each world contributed to the Dominion based on its abilities and received protection and technology in return. On Earth itself, a remarkable transformation had taken place. The cradle of human civilization had been converted into a monument, a reminder of what happens when humanity is cornered. Most of the planet was now preserved as it had been during the exile years, with small areas maintained as living museums. The real centers of human power existed in massive orbital structures and distant core worlds. Dr. Ben Davis and Dr. Michelle Taylor worked in the Central Research Facility on New Horizon, now the largest human settlement outside Sol, with a population of 12 million. Their team had recently achieved what many considered impossible. They had unlocked the dimensional technologies that the most advanced concordate species had been pursuing for millennia. We did in 25 years what took them thousands, Michelle marveled, looking at the prototype dimensional gateway. That's why they feared us, Ben replied. We adapt faster, think differently. What they see as reckless, we see as necessary exploration. The gateway represented the next step in human expansion. It would allow instant travel between any two points in the galaxy, eliminating the need for conventional space travel entirely. In the centric system, once the heart of the Concordate, Captain Richard Lewis commanded the Dominion outpost. The local Zentari population had initially resisted human presence, but relations had improved steadily over the years. Another request from the Zentari High Council, his communications officer reported. They want access to the environmental adaptives technology. Richard considered the request. Approved, but with the standard oversight protocols, and make sure Dr. Wilson's team is involved in the implementation. The technology developed by Laura Wilson decades earlier had proven valuable beyond its original purpose. Environmental adaptives now allowed multiple species to colonize worlds previously uninhabitable to them, opening vast new territories for expansion and relieving population pressures. At the edge of known space, the exploration vessel, Pathfinder, prepared to venture into uncharted regions. Its captain, Emma Ross, addressed her crew before departure. For centuries, the Concordate limited exploration to what they called safe regions of space. They feared what might lie beyond. We don't share that fear. Our mission is to push those boundaries and bring new civilizations into the Dominion's embrace. The ship's advanced sensors, operating in all 12 dimensions, could detect signs of intelligent life from distances the Concordate had never dreamed possible. In the 5 years since the exploration program began, humans had discovered 28 new spacefaring species and brought them into the Dominion. On the station Reconciliation, Ambassador Stephen West, now in his 70s, met with representatives from one such newly discovered civilization, the Novan Collective, a hive mind, species from beyond the former Concordate borders. We were told humans were dangerous, the Novan representative communicated. The remnants of the Zentari we encountered warned us to avoid your kind, Stephen smiled. We can be dangerous when threatened, but we prefer cooperation to conflict. The species that once feared us now prosper under our protection. What guarantees do we have that you won't simply absorb us as you did the Concordate? None, Stephen answered honestly. Except the evidence of our actions. Look at the former Concordate worlds. Have we destroyed their cultures, exploited their resources, restricted their development, or have we helped them advance further than they ever could under their previous alliance? The Novan representative considered this. Your approach is unexpected. The strong typically subjugate the weak. That's the difference between a short-term conquest and a lasting empire, Stephen explained. Subjugation breeds resistance. Partnership builds strength. We learned this lesson during our exile. As the new millennium approached, humanity's empire stretched beyond the boundaries of the former Concordat territory. Scout ships ventured into regions of space never before explored. The Dimensional Gateway project promised to reshape galactic travel entirely. And the species that had once banished humans now worked alongside them, many unable to imagine the galaxy without human leadership. In a private moment, Olivia Harris stood at a viewport on Reconciliation, looking out at the vast spread of stars. She thought about the long journey from exile to empire, how humanity had turned its greatest defeat into the foundation for unprecedented victory. A young aide approached her. "Administrator, the council is waiting." Olivia nodded and turned from the view. "Do you know what day it is?" she asked. "The anniversary of Operation Lazarus," the aide replied. "Yes, but it's something more. Today marks exactly 146 years since the exile began. In less than a century and a half, we went from banished outcasts to the dominant force in the galaxy. How did we accomplish so much so quickly?" Olivia smiled. "By remembering the most important lesson: never underestimate humans, especially when you think you've defeated them." Throughout the known galaxy, that lesson was now clearly understood. The species that had once thought to contain humanity had instead unleashed its greatest potential. The human dominion would continue to grow, explore, and innovate, unstoppable in its advance across the stars.